Dhamma talks. We will still continue with our Vipassana Objects. One of the important instructions in the Vipassana is the directing of the mind to the Paramattha, the Vipassana object. For most beginners, for a start, the instructions will be simple. Don't explain too much about all this Paramattha Dhammas and so on. Although eventually you have to know about it. So the basic instructions is keep it to the present moment, don't think, and just feel the sensations directly. It works for more simple folks. For example, in Burma, where people are not so scholarly all the time, especially simple people, just tell them to do that, they watch rising, falling, they watch rising, falling, and so on. It works in most cases. But not just in the initial instructions, but also in the subsequent instructions, where you are told to watch closer and closer to the basic objects. But the emphasis is that you don't think. You keep to the present moment and experience things as they are, not so they follow and they do it. But in more complicated societies, because the mind conceptualization is more complicated, it's developed. So when you tell them to watch rising, falling, they watch so many other things. When they watch rising, falling, then you start watching the stomach, you start watching I don't know what they watch. Goes this way, they watch the lungs, and so on. When you know right step, left step, right step, left step, just follow the footsteps. Then they write the ankle, the nut, the bones, then it gets complicated. So, more specific instructions has to be given as you go on, like the description of the basic elements. Earth, water, fire, wind. Of the four, three of them are body objects, occur at the body door. The wind, the tension, the heat and cold, the fire, and the hardness, softness, heaviness, lightness, this comes under the earth element, the dhatu, the patavi, apo, tejo. The fourth element is the vayu dhatu. The fourth element is the apo dhatu. The three elements are tejo, vayu, and Patavi. Third element, the other element, fourth element is Apo, water element, and this is connected with fluidity, stickiness, viscosity, and so on. It refers to the material quality of holding together other material qualities. Anyway, as you keep watching rising, falling, and all those things, especially the walking, you eventually also notice it, watch it. But because they're more subtle, they're not so obvious, and people don't know what it means, and teachers don't tell you, and you don't ask. But anyway, you do experience it, and you watch it, and you also like the other three elements, they rise and pass away. Yeah. Except it occurs at the mind door. Now there's something interesting here. There's an element as experienced, and there's element that you think you experience, or near to what you experience, but not totally yet. And the elements that you watch it, blurry. Yeah? So when you watch the element, let's say, usually watch the wind element. Do you watch the wind element very, 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 very clearly? And people ask you, when you watch the movement, rising, falling, rising, stop, falling, stop, do you see, watch exactly when it arises and when it stops? Exactly the pinpoint. You know generally after it has arisen and after it has gone, maybe for some time. And in between you see it, but not so clearly. For example, you ask, what is the wind element like? Oh, it's like movement, something moving. What is moving? The wind element is moving. So you watch it very closely, that is more like you call tension, or maybe a kind of vibration. The wind element is more purely like that. But still we say you feel the object, but you look at it blurry, darkly. And you watch it again and again with more and more mindfulness, then it becomes clearer and clearer. And you can see that it does not just flow continuously, it arises and passes from moment to moment. And I always tell people, when you start the rising, middle of the rising, end of the rising, at the start of rising, is there middle and end? No. At the end of rising, is it beginning and middle? No. And what about the middle? The middle has many moments. And so in this way we can say that we watch it very generally at first. But at least it's enough for a lot of people to follow it until you get some degree of concentration. But then you get concentration, and you see that when you get concentration, you have two types of concentration. You watch it like samatha, anapanasati, or you watch it like vipassana. It's different. You watch it like like samatha, then although you watch the rising, falling, you are still doing samatha. You go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You don't see moment to moment changes. That means the mind is not inclined to anatta lakkhana. It's not inclined to anatta lakkhana. It's not inclined to dukkha lakkhana. It slowly brings you to a deeper level conception, which is better than nothing. Yeah? And so that's why when it was rising, falling, I watch it rising, falling. I watch it with different long, short, different changes here and there, and then you can begin to bring you to see the conditioned nature of the rising, falling. In which case, it's no longer become the rising, falling, but a process of bodily sensations or elements. Now the other way is, you see, the watching of the processes. For example, you watch sitting, touching. What do you watch sitting, touching? You too to watch the different sensations. Here sensation, there sensation, here pull, there pull, here vibrate, there vibrate, di-di-da-da. So you watch the vibrations and all the sensations. You see clearly the characteristics of the elements there. Do you? When you see, you're seeing more like crystal clear. You don't see, it's like your muesli. You eat muesli or you eat porridge. You put the porridge, you go you see, you still see it, but not so clear. Or at least not clear enough to become a real Vipassana object. What happens when you see clearly? Then each one is like one particle. Each element, all those, there's so many particles. Not like, I think more like fireworks. So, one you can say you watch it as a sensation, and the other one you watch it as a process. But when you see the whole thing going like bubbling, ringing, long, especially in case of the sitting, touching sensations, yeah? And then you're watching in a more general way, in like what we call the cloud method. See a lot of things together. It's like a cloud, many things changing, moving. If you just watch the rising, falling, one point, one moving point, then it's like the digital method we have said before. And in the digital method, you watch clearly, it rises and passes away moment to moment. Similarly with the cloud method, you see many points arising and passing away in a mass. But you can say that when you're watching one single process, rising, falling, then you're more closer to the element. So you try to feel and perceive the nature of the element as you go along. You don't feel it immediately. You understand, you try to perceive what is there. When you perceive what is there, what is more obvious in the element will become clear. Rising, falling is not heat, so you don't feel heat. Rising, falling is not hard or soft, is it? It could be hard or soft. You watch hard or soft, then you're watching the earth element, although you're watching the rising, falling. But you're watching the movement, that is the wind element. So when you watch clearly this object in one point, this nature, you find that there are many arising and passing away of this thing, of this characteristic of the one major element involved. Sooner or later, you spread to other elements, other objects, and so you can see the other elements concerned, connected. Now in the process, there's an advantage, the process that you do not stick on so hard on one object. I mean, some people stick hard. When you watch heat, they just watch the heat. Heat is quite clear because heat is burning. But you say earth element or wind element, they just keep on to the tension, and you just keep on to the hold on the characteristic of tension, hold on to the characteristic of earth, hard and soft. So when they hold so along on that characteristics, not in the Vipassana way, then they get stuck. When they get stuck, they don't go beyond the concept of the element, the superficial experience of the element. Yeah? In other words, when you really go into the watching the elements, you will eventually see the element characteristic like fire, heat, was one point that arises and disappear immediately. But you don't, because you don't watch it so clearly as a Paramattha Dhamma. Somewhere along the line in the mind, mind is still holding to compactness, Ghana. Compactness, you tend to watch it as a mass, as a whole, as one thing. That means there's a compactness of continuity. You've got to break that. There's a compactness of mass. You think it's one thing. It's not one thing. It's many things. Compactness of object. You think it's one object. It's not one object. There are many objects. And there's a compactness of what is this? Forgot. Because there's some what called subtle conceptualizations that you're still holding on to. And when you watch rising, falling, you watch it moment to moment because there's a compactness of continuity. So because of that, you cannot break through the concept of time. That's why to make it simple, we say you watch it, the sensations moment to moment. So in the digital system of one point, you also eventually sees it like a process. A process refers to a moment-to-moment process. In the case of the whole sitting, touching sensations, moving and changing in a group, that means you tend to see it as a mass. When you hold on to the mass for too long, you cannot see the moment to moment. But because of the change, there is a tendency to you, if your mindfulness is strong, momentary awareness is strong, then you can see also the mass, the whole mass of particles that arise and pass away, particles of force, different type of forces that come and go. So whether the digital or the cloud, you should end up in the same thing. All right. So which comes first? There is this element, and there is this process. Which comes first? Which can you notice first? What comes first with the whole thing before the object arises, or at the same very first moment the object arises, is the contact. All objects must arise with the contact. When the contact is not there, there's no object. Okay? It comes with the contact. The contact is very important. We go more into this later. And when the contact arises, the object is there. Eye-based contact with the eye object. Then you see, then it's a consciousness, vijnana, that knows the eye object. and the sound strikes the ear, there's contact with the ear base, and the consciousness of the hearing arises, then the hearing consciousness knows the sound. Yeah? Simple. Same with the smell, taste, tongue, body, hand, mind. And so the mind goes through the mind door. And this is another thing I emphasize, which people take for granted, which is a mistake. There's many things concerning the mind door. Right? For example, you stay in the house all the time. Sometimes you get out of the house. Sometimes a friend, when a small kid, a father, take him out for a drive to the seaside and come back. They're so happy. Why? Because the house is not just the whole world. Is this center the whole world? Is it the whole world? No. But how to get out of this place? You cannot find a gate. You cannot find the main door, and you don't have the keys. How can you go out? Sometimes it's by hook or crook you came out because somebody brought you, and after that you don't know where you put the key, and then what the key looks like. So you chari, so you have become a prisoner of your own house. Similarly, when you talk of the mind door. So the mind door is the door to mind objects, which are the more profound, brings about the more profound experiences. But before we go into that, we come first after, when the contact object arises. What object arises? By right, it should be elements. And when elements arise and passes away, you see the process. Right? But this is talking in terms of Abhidhamma. And logic. In actual experience, do you see which do you see clearly? The element or the vibrations and processes? Which do you see more clearly? Could be processes. Elements are too pure and simple. Even you see it, you don't like to see it anyway. Boring. Like staring at your own face in the mirror. First, very interesting. Second, after a while, you get bored. And after that, it becomes more and more ugly because you start growing old and you don't want to see that. By Vipassana, you look deeper and deeper. You see into impermanence. And finally, you see into death. Right? Do you know how the face of death looks like? Have you seen somebody die before? Young Vichan, I think you have. Have you seen your father die? At the very moment? At the very moment. You can see the face changing. It's getting dark, there's a certain look in the eyes, isn't it? The way they look at you, or the eyes of her eyes already closed. When your eyes open, the way they look at you, it's very particular. I've seen it a few times, and after that I recognize it. the face and the look of death. Belum lah, masih ada lama-lama tunggu. I think it's the look that is when the life is seen as its highest point. It's like the last look, you know. The last look before you see anything. I really look for the last time because you're not going to see it anymore. Not again. No, no, never. So, I remember reading, it's interesting, it's a diversion. Have you heard of the book? I don't know whether you read books nowadays. Because last time we didn't have a computer. Computer is shortcut. There's this book called The Good Earth. Have you read it? Huh? Who's that? Answer me. Good Earth. You read it in Chinese or English? Who was the author? Is it? Susan. Susan, I remember one part, when they said the communists or whoever was coming in, and the old couple has to leave the house. So when they're going to leave the house, they're not going to leave anything for the enemies. So they're going to burn their whole house and all the property. So before he left, he told the wife, "Now look at it one more time, and don't ever turn back." So she looked with her eyes big and then remember everything. When she closed her eyes, they ran. Something like that. I remember some other story. I visited my Thai teacher for the last time. This is my Thai meditation teacher. I have a lot of teachers. No? One is then we call it Olong Pat. Have you heard of him? Anybody heard of Olong Pat from Perlis? I learned under him meditation, especially forest meditation, in the cave, near a cave. He used to live in caves, and he wanders in the forest. So after a while, he got more settled, still around the forest hermitage. And he was having cancer and so on. So I visited him for the last time. He said he cannot sit straight anymore because of the cancer in the spine. But he was very calm and cool and nice and everything, and he could still walk, So before he left, he looked at me with those eyes, big, staring into me. I said, "Oh dear," I said, "this is the look of death." Because he knows he's looking at me for the last time, So the time I went with one of these Buddhists, and I left. But when I left, I forgot my my bag and all my stuff. So I have to turn back to the old little hermitage again. Then he looked at me this time, not with the big eyes, smiling, "Ha ha ha, you forgot your bag. You brought it to me." So the face of death. It seems before you die, your earlobes, if you have any, I don't have any, so they don't know, will start shrinking. Correct or not? See your earlobes on there. to the side. Master under, not very long. This old lady, she works in the hospice. I don't know where, I think it's in Kuching, the side. And she says, is it true? Yes, she says. When I see the earlobes start shrinking, in a few days you will die. Seen many of them like that. So that's one thing people don't take notice of. Anyway, we come back to Vipassana. So you see the process and the phase of the element itself. See. So in the beginning, you see the rising, falling, you see the bodily sensations. They're not so very clear. But generally they can notice the vibrations and the sensations changing more. Why? Because they're less boring if you can follow it. Secondly, the characteristic of, not characteristic, the nature of change. We call it viparinama, so-called change. There's one anicca, there's one viparinama. You know Pali? People, you know Pali? You know Pali? You read a lot of books, I'm sure. These two words, viparinama and anicca. Have you heard anicca? Of course, everybody here should have heard anicca. Viparinama may not be so clear. Doesn't use so often. So generally you see change. But this change is not specifically anicca. Anicca refers more to the moment-to-moment change, although it's used generally as change as well. But more specifically points to the moment-to-moment change. So when you see the flux, the change in a more general sense, then it tends to lead you closer to the actual moment-to-moment change. So for example, you watch rising, falling, right, long, fall. The only moment of change you can see is the beginning and end. But the beginning and end is a very one-shot moment. And you don't really perceive it so clearly. You know it ended, but not the point. You know it began, but not the point, right? For example, you ask somebody, like who else want to answer a question? Kim Wong, do you know actually when you were born? When exactly? How? The very moment that you were born. Can you know? You know? Do you know the very moment that you die? Hopefully, then you're mindful. A lot of people don't. Most people know only after they have been born. Can you remember when you were in the womb? Boleh ingat? Can anybody remember the moments in the womb? Cannot. I know of some people who do. Not many. Some people who do. Then only after some time some come out, the doctor whack the stomach. Even then you can't remember. At that moment you know. So this is even much more finer, and so more not easy. And so you know generally it's all the whole mass in the middle. And if you don't differentiate the variation, the flux, then you also don't get closer to the anicca, or the actual moment of the reality, paramattha. So this ability to watch the sensations in the flux helps to bring the mind closer to the reality. This general change of flux, we call it viparinama. Change of flux. Viparinama dhamma kalanu tang king manyata bhikkhave rupang anicca va anicca di anicca bante yampa anicca dhamma viparinama dhammang kalanu. No, sorry, I forgot the whole thing. Sorry. So this is the monks. If you see the rupa, vedana, and so on, aggregates, when you see the viparinama dhamma, the phenomena in the flux, what do you think, monks? Is it happiness or suffering? Of course, suffering. So that's it. So when you watch the whole element, suppose you're watching the whole element, you also must watch the flux. Then only you get to the point. You don't watch the flux, and you won't get very closer to the anicca. Right? For example, you watch the lifting, pushing, stepping. So you know that lifting is one whole process, pushing is one whole process. In the beginning, you want OM and mass in a bulk. Push, step. In the beginning, just right step, left step, even more gross. But the idea to see it is see it in a process, in a flux. And then when you see it on flux, then you can see it moment to moment. When you can see moment to moment clearly, then you watch the element very clearly. Pop, it arises the moment, it passes away. Yeah. So we may say that at the beginning you watch the general elements and you watch the general processes. So finally you watch the processes in more precision, or you watch the elements in more precision with the process. That means you see the actual elements clearer in the process, and you teach the process clearer in the elements. Both ways will do. And then you get to the paramattha. So you can say at the level 1, observing your object of vipassana, or your, first you watch it more either in a general way, the element, or the process. Then after, when you go to one point, especially in which case you would have reached the first insight knowledge, the first jnana, the knowledge of discrimination of mind and matter. Mind has a characteristics, matter have their characteristics. And they're both interrelated. And so when they see them together, then you arrive at the paramattha dhamma, the doorstep of the insight knowledges. It's not so difficult. You practice long time, so you probably have also experienced this, and you know it by the clear presence of what you call non-self, anatta. Any questions so far? The same thing. Joanna, sounds more right. Or rather, tastes more right. Now this anatta matter is a very, very important thing. It's actually the gist of the practice. It's the heart of the Buddhist doctrine. All the religions, they tend to talk about self, big self, small self, the everlasting self. Buddhist doesn't talk about the self. It talks of reality, nature. Because the word self has a definite meaning in the vocabulary, and people get different ideas of what it is. So, it's important to know the idea of non-self, because in Vipassana Buddhism, we talk about reality. And what is reality? Another word for reality is Dhamma, truth. Another word for reality is Anatta. There are different words with different implications, but essentially, in experience, it's the same thing. Now, this reality, we call it Paramatta, is to be experienced with sharp, clear mindfulness. We experience this Paramatta every day, even if you don't meditate. Pain, do you experience pain? You look at the hospital, everybody in the hospital having pain of body and mind. Right? They're experiencing the Paramatta Dhamma of pain. But they don't see it as Paramatta Dhamma, ultimate reality. They see it as me, my feeling, my heart. Oh, my heart. And basically, it's feeling. Feeling is the Paramatta Dhamma that arises and passes away. But they don't see it as that. They see it as something, and then it sticks on around all the time, and then they hold on to it, identify with it. Because if they don't identify it, life has no meaning. I must be there for meaning to arise. If I'm not there, how can there be any meaning? There's people who we call it ordinary folk, putujana, who are not well versed in the teachings of the Enlightened One. That's how the sutras always say. But if you have clear mindfulness, you sometimes people start thinking, who am I? Who am I? Who are you? Young Vichan, who are you? That's what it means, that you know something. Otherwise, you ask somebody, I'm Yong Vichan. Who else? There's only one Yong Vichan in the world, and he is the greatest of them all. Correct? Who's the greatest of them all? Ong Teo Eng. Of all in the world. You, Ong Teo Eng, you're the greatest in all the world. Yeah. The Chinese say, 天大地大我最大. Heaven is great, earth is great, I'm the greatest. Yeah. Correct? Because man is not man. Heaven, earth, man stands in between. It's Taoist philosophy. But what is this man? Anyway, I'm not going to Confucianism and Taoism. I don't know much of that anyway. So, so when you watch, who am I? How do you watch? So different. So what you are doing with Vipassana is you're watching. You don't say, who am I? What is this? What is this Ong Tiao Wing? What is this Yong Wei Chan? What is this Keng? I don't know what. I don't know his full name. What? You say, Mr., Mrs., then you think of a personality. There's a person concept. You put away the person concept, then what? So you end up with mind and matter. There's the mind there, and there's body there. There's a mind and matter, and you look clearly, what is the mind? So many what is the matter? The body, materiality, and you see so many then you're getting right. So you start going, then you start undergo the Vipassana penetration. Yeah? Things seem real in the beginning. When you look at it deeper, it's not as real anymore. It's only real at a certain level. When you go deeper, okay, there's more. You go deeper, there's another deeper reality. So depending on the perception of the phenomena, what is there, the dhammas, what is there, the perception goes deeper. And the deeper the perception, that means you arrive at higher level insight knowledges. The first insight knowledge of able to differentiate mind and matter, and all the mind and matter is anatta. It's not an everlasting self, it does not last forever, it's not me, not mine, not myself, but just a state, a condition, Dhamma. And what is a state, a condition? The theoretical definition is that which bears its own characteristic. Sabbhava, lakkhana. Lakkhana is characteristic, sabbhava is natural characteristics. So we say in Abhidhamma, the 28 rupa, materiality, 52 mental states, 89 consciousness, 1 nibbana, are referred to this Paramattha Dhamma. But nibbana cannot experience in the beginning. There is no preliminary, there's no superficiality. Nibbana is just nibbana. So the other three applies. So when you see them clearly, you see them arise, disappear immediately. Or you see them as non-self. There's no me, no mine, no myself. It's a natural process. And what is this phenomena? We call it Dhamma, Sabbhava Lakkhana. What is the word for it? Unique characteristic, or particular characteristic. When you see the particular characteristic clearly, then you see the Paramattha clearly at its initial insight level. Yeah? You see, wind element, just tension, nothing else. No I, no me. You don't argue whether it's mine or yours, because there's you're not there anyway. Are you imagining? You're not imagining. The mindfulness very clear, the mindfulness very present. So it's just that. Then when you see that, automatically the other characteristics will follow up, depending on how clear your first insight knowledge is. So all the other insight knowledge is established on the first insight knowledge. your first insight knowledge is not clear enough, difficult to progress further, unless you have very strong parami, strong good karma in meditation. So anatta generally means natural existence that you can perceive clearly when you put away all the defilements, when you put away all the concepts at that moment. And there's a Paramattha Dhamma. And when you see that, you don't think of a not me, not mine, not myself. No, that's theory. That's the definition of anatta in the negative sense. In the positive sense, it's just natural phenomenon. Naturally, automatically the I, me, mine, yours, all also not there. Soul or no soul, all those concepts are gone. So this impression of those definition will come clearer as you experience more and more phenomena as anatta. The what you call earth element anatta, wind element anatta, fire element anatta, water element anatta, painful feeling, neutral feeling, pleasant feeling anatta, all types of consciousness anatta. You see clearly as anatta, that means you must have mindfulness enough to reach the state, to see the state, and it rises and it passes away. You see it and it doesn't pass away. Kang hu mo kau. Not skilled enough yet. See. For example, you watch anger rising, anger, I want to kill him. You watch anger, but still after some time you want to kill him. And when you sleep, you're still thinking of killing him. But to be careful, one day you may actually turn out to be a murderer. So, because of defilement, you say you're looking at the anger, but you're not mindful. If you are mindful, the anger will come and go, come and go, come and go. That means you have some mindfulness. You're having a tug of war. Obviously, your perception of anatta is not clear enough. Otherwise, you see clearly, feeling, anger, disappears. Because the anger often connected with the defilements, and the defilements are further strengthened by the wrong view of the self, from the identification, deep identification process. But when you see anatta clearly, your mindfulness, and see the Paramattha, there's nothing there, there's just the Paramattha. Then does it mean I'm not there? No, I'm not. Yes, I'm not there. But generally in life, you are there, because the operation is on the conceptual level. In the conceptual level, you have to accept the concept of Mr. Ong Tiao Wing, Mr. What do you call, Li Tejo, Miss Wu Kia Kut, and then whoever, I can't remember all your names. You have to accept, you probably call you Li Tejo, correct, present. In Chinese, you say, "Zai." They say this what you call Wu Zhi Tian. Wu Zhi Tian, the empress of the Tang Dynasty, only one empress. When she wants to call her whole army, okay, General Ku, Zai. General Kim, Zai. General Kim Fong, so present. One day I was in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, often they don't speak Mandarin now. Although now they're being coerced. When somebody asks you, the boss call, Wong Fei Hong, hi. Feng Sayong, hi. Because they used to say, what is it? Hi. Oh, it's Chai. It's present. So in this case, you see the presence of all these phenomena, and you see this not a person. These are just characteristics. But you go look deeper into all these characteristics, they are also superficial. Although the reality is a bit deeper, but still not the only ultimate thing is Nibbana. But they use the word ultimate in the sense that at that moment you don't have concepts. That's ultimate as you can get in Abhidhamma. So when you see this phenomena all become more clear, the impression of anatta becomes stronger and stronger, and it will stick to you in your daily life. Although you know this anatta, but still you are still fluent, still live in the conceptual world outside. Right? So you know the deeper truth underneath, but you can still operate. Otherwise, like this lady who refused the word I, there's no I, so she doesn't use I, me. She just refer to this mind and matter talking to that mind and matter. So what happened finally? Everybody reserved their own names except her. Because everybody changed her name to Namarupa. But doesn't mean she's getting any wiser, Sometime, another funny incident. I went to US. I ended up in Seattle. And introduced me to stay in a Thai temple, the biggest Thai temple in Seattle. And everybody has gone to Seattle before. Susan, have you been to Seattle? No. How come? Seattle is very far away. So I went there and I was staying in the Thai monastery, the biggest in the huge monastery there. And it's like an upside down boat, like the Indonesian called what? Perahu, Tangkuban Perahu, what? There's one volcano near to Bandung. Is it? No, you have to go. There's a site we didn't see, a volcano called something Perahu. It's one of the tourist sites. I refuse to go and see it because I've seen it before. And this one is actually, so I don't call it Tangkuban Perahu, I call it Tenggelam Perahu. Easy to remember, Perahu Tenggelam. So I went there because I was brought there to teach Vipassana. And because I could speak English. So I went there to teach. While I was there was one Indian lady. She was having problem with time and the perception of time, and she's getting difficult. She thinks she's going crazy. You know why? She heard about the concept of time. She tried to overcome the concept of time. She says, there's no such thing as time. There's no morning, there's no evening, there's no afternoon, there's no night. So people ask you, will you come here in the morning? What morning? There's no such thing as a morning. There's no time. And so she went completely a bit funny. I told her, my dear lady, you are confused. You don't have clear comprehension. You cannot do without concepts. You have to do with concepts. You live in the conceptual world. But you don't have to be attached to it. You can see through it. What happened? The problem was what happened. He asked one of the monks there. The monk said, wonderful, we should all be like you. Then she became more confused. If she has really understood the nature of Paramatha Dhamma, the experience of it, okay, not so bad. But she hasn't, she only put away the concept of time. Without the concept of time, she cannot refer to anything much in this world. Things like that happen. The master. So recently I came across some people also having experienced this insight for the first time. For example, I was in Vietnam, and also once here. People were waiting, they become so alert and aware of the moment, no? And they're walking, aware. It's so strange and wonderful feeling. I think, can you feel the footsteps clearly? Can you feel the sensation? Yes, very clearly. Do you know there's anatta? I don't know. Because they have the whole idea of concept anatta, but where at that moment, they're just experiencing the mind and body characteristic moving on by itself. It's got a life of its own. You don't have to be there. But still, because of mindfulness, the mind still knows and still can be controlled. There's a kind of automatic movement like people who walk and sit and they cannot control themselves, and that is dangerous. No mindfulness. Like for example, in Chinese, people do Chinese meditation or during their retreat, they walk around, no? They walk around very fast. So they sit and sit and sit. After that, they get up for a while and walk around. Why? Because to get rid of the sloth and torpor or restlessness. But sometimes they are not mindful. They get caught up in the walking around, and they just keep walking around. They cannot control. No mindfulness, completely crazy. Like there was one lady, she was supposed to be a nun in Taiwan, and she not satisfied. She came back. She attended the retreat. She asked me, one day, why must you keep watching pain? Pain is emptiness anyway. So it's empty, why can't you watch it? Cannot. Why? Because it's too pain. It's not empty. Then one day, everybody got a bit disturbed by her because she shoot everybody out of the meditation hall. You know why? Because I need the whole space, because I cannot control my feet. When I walk, it just goes wherever it likes. It run, help here, do there. You're getting crazy. Go back to rising, falling, right, left, mindful, touching. See? These are certain misconceptions. Very wrong misconception. So when you become more aware of anatta, you're more sane, because you're more aware of your mental processes as they occur. And you know the moment craving, anger arises, you know very craving, you can control better. Yeah? Which means it's not just a first insight knowledge, but a matured first insight knowledge. Which means it's not just anatta, but matured and strong anatta. Then it takes you further, the second, third, fourth, and other higher and such knowledges. All right? with the Chukwumasa. Any questions? Then we can have a final aspiration. Idang me punyang asavakayavahang hotu. Idang me punyang nibbanasa pacayo hotu. Imang no punya bagang Sava Sattanang Dema Sadhu Sadhu.